Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Monday Modcast with Breathe America. My name is Patrick Wickard. I will be your host. As most of you know, we are taking a step away from our normal kind of shows, and we're going to tackle a very, very difficult subject. One that I think a lot more people are affected with than I think we tend to realize. So, we're gonna spend the night talking about domestic violence. We're going to talk about a lot of different aspects of it, the implications of it, what happens, how it happens, a lot of different aspects. But ultimately, what we want to do is we want to shine a light on the fact that this is a problem and this is something that we need to be aware of. And I also want to make it very clear to anybody that is experienced these things or is currently dealing with these sort of situations that you are not alone. And to also reiterate something that I stated this morning, that this is not your fault and that there are resources out there to help you. And we would like to highlight some of those tonight. If you look at the bottom of your screen, you will notice that there are the National Dating Abuse Hotline numbers are rolling across, and the National Domestic Violence Hotline is also going across the bottom of the screen. So if you need help, please, that's a really great place to start. That being said, I am interested in playing a video for you guys that kind of goes into much more detail about the severity of the problem of domestic violence. It's about a 4-minute long video, and for some of you guys, it might be pretty difficult to watch. There are some pretty heavy statistics in there, and there's some things that are well, it's just it can be a tough video to watch. And then after that, we'll discuss it, and I have a special guest coming on tonight to discuss their personal experience with domestic violence, both as a child witnessing it and later in life as it became a reality that they had to face themselves. So, with that being said, I would like to go ahead and throw this video up and get started. So, thank you guys for joining us, and here we go. So, as you can see, there are some statistics there that are pretty disturbing. Um, the numbers in other countries are just as ugly. 63,000 women a year in this country, right here. 63,000. 23,000 calls a day. 23,000 calls a day. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an epidemic. This is a problem. These are the kind of things that we cannot allow to continue. We have to do, like, I've talked many times about teaching a better lesson and doing a better job, right? And this is one of those areas where we absolutely have to do a better job. And the statistics that came up about it being a 60% of all women murders are women that are murdered or by a current or ex lover. 12% of those are family. It's brothers and sisters and those kind of things, right? Like, I don't believe that this is human nature. I don't believe that this is what we are designed for. I believe that this is a societal problem where we have turned a blind eye to this for far too long. Domestic violence goes deep for a lot of people. And a lot of women that I have known personally that have dealt with this also grew up experiencing it, seeing it from their fathers against their mother or stepfathers against their mothers. And it's something that I have seen have long lasting effects on people and continues to affect their life well into their adult years. And some people, their entire life. Some of us never get away from it. So I think it's really, really important that when we discuss matters like this, that we understand the severity of the issue that we're discussing, right? We're talking about 63,000 women a year that are killed in this country. 60% of those are ex-lovers or current lovers. Like, guys, this is a lot. All tied to domestic violence. One of the things we're going to get into here in a little bit is what is domestic violence? Because there's a lot of things I think that are domestic violence that we don't necessarily think of as domestic violence, but we will get into that a little later. But what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to introduce a very, very special guest, a woman that I have grown to care about a great deal, and somebody that has supported me ever since this whole thing started and encouraged me to do all this that I'm doing now. And one who for a long time had talked about doing this show, but it was only recently that she decided she was ready, which is why we are here now. So my very good friend, Billy Joe Marshall.
Hi.
Now talk.
Hi.
Hello, Billy. How are you, darling?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Tough topic tonight, but I think it's an important one, and it's one that we definitely need to address. I think there's already been a comment about men get abused too, and that is absolutely accurate. It does happen. The numbers, there were some statistics thrown up in that video about men being abused as well. Those numbers aren't as severe, but as you can see on the bottom of the screen now, it says 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience physical violence with their partner. So, but Billy, why did you want to do this show?
Because I think domestic violence is on the increase with the lockdowns, with COVID, with all of it. And I don't think people necessarily even put all that together.
Sure.
And I lived it as a child. I lived it as an adult. I ultimately moved 1,000 miles away to get away from it.
So there are alarming statistics right now about the increase right now with the lockdowns and everything else, and obviously it's being connected or related to COVID. People aren't dealing with this stress very well, and people that normally wouldn't be dealing with this sort of situation now are. So it, the increase is sad. Like it really is. And I hate to see, I would love to see people, coming together in a time of need like this versus dragging each other apart. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be what's happening.
I agree. And I think there's a correlation between drug and alcohol abuse along with the domestic violence, because I don't think a lot of it would happen if they weren't somehow impaired.
I agree. And we're seeing an increase in drug and alcohol abuse too. We're seeing an increase in relapse. We're seeing an increase in suicide attempts and suicides. And we're seeing an increase in a whole lot of things. And so, of course, the last one that gets talked about, though, is the increase in domestic violence, right? Like, and
Well, it's
go ahead.
You keep your family problems at home, right? I mean, you don't air your dirty laundry to your friends and family and neighbors, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
what we're
I
told.
think the shame of it is one of the things that keeps people in the cycle because they don't want to
Right.
admit it.
Right. Well, my father was a deputy sheriff, and he would just hospitalize her, break bones, ask us to go get a gun so he could shoot her in the head. And who do you call? His coworkers? Well, they're gonna help.
Right.
And we're talking, the late 60s, early 70s also. So then it was even more taboo, I feel like. Right? You keep your business to yourself.
Sure.
You don't embarrass him. If he gets caught, he loses his job. You starve. You're homeless, right? So
Do you think we've gotten better since the 60s and 70s with dealing with this or not?
I think we have gotten better when dealing with it, but I think the mentality hasn't changed in the abused people, right? You're a strong, independent man or woman, and you're allowing someone to do these things to you, right? So therefore, then there's something wrong with you. So everything that he's told you, you're fat, you're ugly, you're dumb, you can't support yourself, all those things, you fulfill that in your own mind. Because why are you putting up with it? He must be right.
Well, you brought up like the money, so let's talk about the economical abuse part of domestic violence.
So
if you don't have the financial means to leave,
right.
or you don't have access to the finances that your family does have, and you are threatened on a regular basis with those things, is that something that classifies as domestic violence in your mind?
Absolutely. Anytime they're trying to control you, be it through resources, through fear, through abuse, sexual, mental, physical, whatever it is, yeah, definitely.
I agree. So, I mean, there's so many layers to this. And, that story that you just told about your childhood, like a police officer obviously made it a whole lot more difficult to deal with. Did your mother ever get out of that situation?
When I was 16, she finally moved out. Finally. And she would, of course, it's his fault. I know that. But she would go out and get drunk. And her favorite line was, "The more I drink, the smaller he looks." Are you stupid, Mom? Yes. Right. And I know he did it, but she could have gone to bed, right? But she wouldn't. She'd go up and rip every button off his shirt, and slap him in the head. Well, he's going to take that about 2 seconds, and then off they go. And it was a every Saturday night occurrence for as long as I can remember.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess that explains where you got it.
So then you think you would learn, right? I know what I'm not going to do, right? I'm
Right.
not going to be abused by a man. I am not. I saw my mother live this until I was married to a man that started to abuse me and my child one time. And then I ended that. Him with
Now,
handcuffs.
were there any indications in the build up to your relationship and the marriage and all that stuff that let you believe that he was the kind of person that would put his hands on you?
No, no. Sweet, nice, thoughtful while he was sober. Drunk and in the verbal abuse, the name calling, that type of stuff. And then the withholding of funds came. And then the actual, grab me by the neck, throw me against the wall, pick up whatever he could, gonna bash my head in. Make me sit while he cleaned his gun and explained every part and wrote my name on one of his bullets for his AK-47. That was a nice touch. And it was like the next day after that, he grabbed my son by the neck and picked him up and threw him across my living room onto the couch. So that night, he left in handcuffs, which you would think would end it. And of course, divorce papers were filed, no contact orders were issued, all of that. And he passed away 6 years ago. And probably 2 months before he passed away, he was still calling me. My current husband said to him at one point, it has been she's been married to me for 16 years. Leave her alone. It's time. Threatened to steal my son off a playground at school. We had an FBI agent for a while. I mean, it was crazy. Threatened to shoot and kill my 76-year-old mother, me being 1,000 miles away, unable to protect her.
So for you, even though you physically got out, the mental side of it never really ended, did it?
No, it never did. Actually, I was talking to one of my friends yesterday about the show. And I said, my kitchen window looks out onto my deck. And we've lived in this house 15 or 20 years. And every time I was doing dishes while he was still alive, and I'd look out that window, I was expecting to see his face looking back in at me. Because he threatened to do that, of course. He terminated his own parental rights, said that I and my son were not safe in his presence. And my son was 4 or 5 when that happened. And he never saw him again.
What do you feel are the effects emotionally long term?
I think you question your judgment. How did this happen? This is one thing you said wouldn't happen because you lived it and you didn't want to ever do that again. And then you chose this person, right? I mean, no one made me marry him. I chose that. So, I really questioned my judgment for a long time.
Do you blame yourself, or did you blame yourself?
I did because, I'm smarter than this, right? I lived it. I saw it. Mm-hmm. Why did my mom stay? Why did she allow this to continue? Why didn't she put an end to it, right? And then here I am, probably 10 years after mom finally left, and I'm sitting there thinking, how did I end up here? How did I allow this to happen? Because obviously I allowed it to happen. He was still in my home at that point, right? So it is my fault. I chose a bad partner, or not a great partner for me. He might have been a great guy with somebody else. Maybe it was just the two of us that didn't hitch horses. I don't know what the problem was. But yeah, I did blame myself because I chose that. And I knew, I think every person has like a rock bottom, if you will. When
Sure.
this happens, I'm done, right? When this happens, I'm done. And mine was, you touch my children, you hurt my children, and I'm done. And to grab a 4-year-old by the neck and throw him across the room, what would have happened the next day? What would have happened to my 9-year-old daughter when she got lippy? What would have happened? He didn't stick around to find out.
Well, I'm glad that that you had the courage to get out when you did, like, because the longer you're in those situations, I think the more damage that can be done, long term. But at the same time, how long did you blame yourself? Because obviously, I know you now, right? Like
Right.
I know you now, and I know that you don't blame yourself now.
No.
Like you recognize that like this wasn't your fault.
Right. It wasn't my fault. I didn't ask for any of this to happen, but it did happen. So I would say probably, I think just getting the distance from him, I thought was going to be really helpful, at least for me. And I mean, it was just, everything just lined up perfectly, right? I mean, I had him removed in handcuffs, never saw him again.
Right.
2 months later or 3 months later, I met my current husband. He happened to live in Georgia. He's like, if you don't get out of that state, I think this man is going to actually kill you. You have to get your children and get out of there. Come to Georgia. So quit my job, sold everything I had, loaded a U-Haul. 14 hours later, welcome to Flowery Branch, y'all. Bless my heart.
And you're still there to this day.
Right?
No, you know
24
what, Billy? You really are an inspiration. And I know there's a lot about your story that we're not really getting into, and for a lot of different reasons. But the truth is, so one of the reasons I really wanted to do this with you. How long have you been married to John now?
Be 24 years in December.
24 years. How's that relationship going?
Beautifully. Perfect.
Like,
As perfect as
I
it can
got the
be.
chance to meet you guys. I got the chance to meet you guys and hang out with you guys. And I'm going to tell everybody watching something. They are literally that couple that makes you sick because they are still that in love with each other. It is dumb. It is just dumb, right? I love them both. They are amazing people. And, knowing Billy's story and seeing where she's at now, she truly did overcome it. And that's the part that I think gets missed for a lot of people when we start talking about domestic violence is that, we talk about how hard it is to leave or how they're economically trapped or how they need more resources. And yes, all of that's true. But what you really need is hope. And that is what Billy is. Billy is a perfect example of somebody that you can look at who has been through the worst of the worst. She grew up with it, then she found herself in the middle of it, like she just shared with you, cleaning a gun while writing her name on a bullet. That's about as dark as it gets as far as the psychological damage goes. The physical abuse that she endured was just as ugly as anything that I have ever heard. And yet here she sits today, 24 years, happily married, one of them ridiculously annoying couples that are just too happy. And I know John's in the back laughing his ass off right now. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Johnny boy. But seriously, that is why I wanted you guys to hear Billy's story. That is why I wanted her here. There is hope for all of you guys, for anybody that is dealing with these things. There is hope. It is not a death sentence. It is not your fault. Like Billy said, you didn't ask for these things. Did you ever imagine at that time that your life would end up where it's at now?
No, I didn't. No. And ironically, financially, I was, quote, the breadwinner. So when I had him removed, the reason because I had told him several months prior to the end that if these things didn't change, it was ending, right? And the reason I gave him that window was I knew he didn't have any place to go. I knew he wouldn't be able to support himself. So, fix this problem, get sober, get clean, do the things, fix this thing. And so he was the one in the financial bind, if you will. So he actually ended up moving in with his parents because he couldn't support himself. So that was, I guess, a blessing for me that I had that a lot of people don't. Is that I was the breadwinner.
But you left that job. You had to leave that job. You had to leave
I
that
did.
security, that safety net. And you moved
All my
1,000
friends,
miles away.
all my friends, all my family, everybody I knew, I left. Yeah.
There's a comment in here that not many people are lucky to find somebody new that will treat you right and appreciates, respects, and accepts you completely. One of the things that I think is the reason why Billy was able to find such a thing is she was willing to do exactly that. She was willing to leave. She was willing to go someplace else. She was willing to say, you know what? I want a new beginning. And we have to do that for ourselves sometimes. Hey, stop. Uh-oh. She'll be back in a minute. But yeah, we have to do that for ourselves sometimes, because if we're not willing to leave and do for ourselves what needs to be done, then ultimately there is nobody to blame but ourselves, right? We have to pick ourselves up. We have to be willing to move on. We have to be willing to do whatever we need to do in order to add the distance between them, your abuser, and yourself, in order to create the space for you to actually be free from these things. Yeah, I don't know why you keep leaving and coming back, but like a little warning would be nice.
It keeps kicking me out. I'm
That's a
getting
first.
booted. Something went wrong, and then I have to come back.
Sure, blame something else, Billy.
You know me. Yeah, you know how I roll.
I'm curious, what advice would you give any woman that's in a situation like that?
Get a plan. Have a plan. Know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. Have people in place to support you and help you get through that first. When a woman's getting ready to leave, that's when she's in the most danger. When she's leaving, or in the few days after she's gone. So be able to hide or have him locked up and make sure he stays locked up. And just surround yourself with positive people that aren't telling you what to do and what you need to do this, and you need to do this, you need to do this. Just people who just will listen to you and not question your judgment, because every thought you've ever had, for as long as you've been with that person, they make you think you're crazy. You're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem. And to leave that to go to people who are also telling you what to do and what you should do and how you should do it isn't very helpful. So just surround yourself with people who will support you and not question your judgment.
Pretty solid advice, I gotta admit. That's pretty solid advice. Now, I kind of want to turn we're about halfway through the show, so I'd kind of like to get the audience getting some questions ready for us, because we are going to do a bit of a Q&A session a little later. So if you want to start throwing comments and questions up for us, now would be a really good time to do that. And I don't know, like we haven't talked a lot about the ticker since early on, but like the one going across at the bottom right now, 1 in 15 children are exposed to an intimate partner's violence each year, right? Like it's a lot of kids, guys, a lot of kids. And what Billy's talking about here, as far as having a plan, having a way out, and it all starts with recognizing one thing. Number one, that you need to get out. And I think a lot of times people tend to stay for a lot of different reasons. whether it's financial and economical, whether it's children, whether it's he doesn't mean it or she doesn't mean it, or they're going to change. I've heard that one a lot. At the end of the day, if you're with a partner that puts their hand on you in violence, that should be the end of the road.
And it's generally a building exercise too. They can cuss at you and call you names and, micromanage your life. And it's a progression. At least that's what I've experienced.
I'm going to say it again. If you're with a partner who physically puts their hands on you in violence, hits you, locks you up, threatens you, any of these types of domestic violence that we're talking about, if you've experienced that and you're with that person, you need to make the plan to leave. It is for your best interest, right? It is for you. It is in your best interest. It is in your children's best interest. Look, there are ways out. There are organizations that are there and designed to help. I don't know how much help we could be at Breathe America, but if you reach out to us, we're going to get you in touch with people. I guarantee you that. So make the plan.
Absolutely.
Make that plan. Start working towards that end goal. And that end goal should be your safety, your children's safety, and a life where you are not threatened.
And if it's a financial thing, start skimming off the top. When you go to the grocery store and slide your credit card, your debit card, throw an extra $50 on it. Start stockpiling money. If it's financial, stockpile. Get a plan. If there's a will, there's a way, right? There's a way out of it.
This is something I'm looking forward to, you guys, right here. Tell us your survival stories. #BrokeMyChains. This is something I think could be amazing, not only for all of us who have been or all of you that have been in these situations to express your story and to tell your story, but for all of those here that are reading or watching that are in the situation to see and know that, like, you know what, there's an opportunity here for others. If they could do it, I can do it. And I want every single one of you, like I tell you every day, I believe in all of you, right? And any of you that is in this situation, I believe in you. I know you can do this. I know you can get this done. So if you need help, read these stories, talk to these women, talk to us, reach out to the numbers going across the national, the hotline numbers that are out there. Like, there are resources. Please do not feel trapped, because you're not. It may feel that way, but there is a way out. And not everybody is going to judge you for how you got in that situation. I know I'm not, and I know Billy's not.
Nope.
And I'd be shocked if anybody at Breathe America did.
Right. And if you just need to talk, I'm here.
Billy, I love that you said that, but I got to warn you. That actually comes with your phone ringing a lot.
My phone rings a lot already. Half the time it's you.
No, yeah, we talk a lot. It's true. No, it turns out like it's one of the most difficult parts of what I've been doing ever since this all started, but it's also one of the most amazing. So to all of you that have reached out, and every single one of you knows who you are, whether it was in a suicidal state or whether it was in a whatever. Like, it's been the greatest blessing of my life to be able to help as many people as I have so far with this, and it literally fuels me to continue to keep going, because all I really want to do is help more people. Michelle Egger, you said someone should leave if they are being physically abused. What if the abuse isn't physical?
It will be. It will be.
Whatever part of the scale it is on that domestic violence scale, even if it's just threats, even if it's not physical, even if it's emotional, mental, financial, any of these other kind of abuses, that is not a healthy situation for you or your family or your children. And I do believe that your best bet in these situations is either setting really, really hard, strict boundaries and changing this behavior immediately the moment that it shows up. But if it's a habit already, it's time to protect yourself, because these things escalate.
Yes, absolutely. They don't come home from work one day and punch in the face. No, no. The psychological abuse, the verbal abuse, you're fat, you're ugly, you're stupid, all of that comes, calling you all of the names you can ever think of and then some, all of that starts and then it just continues to escalate. And then the first
Blaming
time they
you.
do it, they're sorry. And you get flowers and diamond rings, and it's never going to happen again. And then it happens the second time. And then they're twice as sorry. And then you get the new car. And it just continues.
It's a cycle that once it's started and once it's been established, and the people that I know that have lived it, and the people that I know that are still living it, that I know people that I care a great deal for that are literally living this cycle out as we speak. And despite my best efforts, I can't help them, because you can't help those that aren't willing to help themselves, no matter what you do. And I'm going to tell you guys, as because I know that the people that are experiencing it are going through a lot. I know that it's difficult, but one of the things that I think a lot of times you miss when you're the person that's dealing with it is how much it affects the people that care about you. Bailey. But yeah, the effect that it has on the people that care about you guys, is very, very severe. I wish all the time that I had the ability to. Are you back?
Sorry. That was
is
me.
That your ring? Was that your ringer? Is that your ringtone?
No,
Really?
I had the TV on pause, and I guess it had been paused for an hour and a half, so it decided to start talking to us. I had to find the remote and mute it. Sorry.
Yeah, but so seriously, the effects that it has on those closest to you guys, for those, and you know what? I'm just going to come out and say this, because I know that there's a handful of people that I'm talking about right now that know me, that know that I care about them, that are living this right now. And it sucks. It sucks being me in this situation. And this isn't about my feelings, but I'm just telling you, like, watching people go through these things, watching people continue to repeat this pattern is one of the most difficult things I have ever done in my entire life. Waiting for that day, hoping that day comes where that phone call finally comes and says, ready, get me out of here. Because when you have when you have true friends, when you have people that genuinely care about you, they want to help you. And we're not allowed to. So it's a side of the story that doesn't get talked about, I don't think. And it's one that I live every day for a few people in my life. And it sucks. I can literally tell you it sucks.
I agree.
This is where you say something, Billy.
I said I agree. I agree it sucks. And there's nothing that you can do until they're ready. Whatever their rock bottom is, whatever that is, I think it's different for everybody. But when that happens, you will get that phone call.
And you know what? When that phone call comes, if that person happens to be watching, when that phone call comes, I'm coming. I will answer. And I will come to help. Plain and simple. It's an impossible situation to just walk away from. Let's see, Mimi, what do you got? I was married for 8 years. Somebody who was physically, mentally, and verbally abusive. He was an alcoholic and a drug addict. He attacked me in front of my family and was seriously injured as a result of the attack. After leaving, he threatened to kill me and my family. My family ultimately was my lifeline who helped me. It took 2 days for the police to find and arrest him. Ultimately, the system back in 2008, 2009 didn't take domestic violence seriously. His charges were dropped from a felon. You know, Mimi, these I don't know what the situation was back in those days. Um, you know, I'm grateful that your family was there for you in that time, because I mean, a lot of times that's what it takes. It takes your family being there. You know, it takes people that care about you being there and helping you to move out or to get going.
Yep, someone to have your back.
Yeah, to truly have your back.
Yes.
You know, your best interest in mind. You know, that's a rare thing to come across. They're saying that sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. Is that the biggest lie I was ever told as a child? Words can be mentally damaging. Yeah.
Well, and you know, bruises heal, right? Cuts heal. That all goes away. The words are forever seared in your brain, right? I mean, you've hurt yourself a million times, right? You bruised yourself a million times. You don't really think about that.
Literally a lot for this guy.
Right? And then the words, hurtful words, are just seared forever in your brain. And every time you hear that word, it takes you back to that time, that place where it was said to you ugly,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So I
You
agree
know,
with her.
I have experiences in my life that, you know, body broken, back broken, you know, physical pain on a level that very, very few people probably have ever gotten to experience. And yet those memories fade pretty easy. You know, I mean, like just the other day, weather's changing, storms are starting to come in, my body's starting to hurt because I got way too much pain or way too much hardware, right? And I got up and I moved wrong. And I got that old familiar friend, that little stabby pain in the back that shot down my leg. And like my leg got all weak and got like shaky. And I had to grab the wall and I about went down. And I was like, oh, I forgot how much this hurt. But there are words that have been said to me in my life that I have never been able to forget.
Right.
You know, their effect never has left, you know. And it wasn't until I really started down that path of letting go of all of those things and understanding like my mind and my thoughts and who and what I really am that I finally found peace with those things. But they used to haunt me. They used to haunt me because
Oh,
those things are hard to get over.
they
There are
are. And
some
it's
sentences that your loved ones can say to you that will damage you for life if you let it.
absolutely. And even if you
Yeah.
don't let it, if you hear that same sentence again, it still takes you there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 30, 40, 50 years later, you're still right there.
The aftermath slash trauma can cause or can result from a situation or situations with a non-spouse as well. Absolutely. Absolutely. It could be your best friend. It could be just a boyfriend, girlfriend. It could be anybody that you're intimately involved with. And, you know, that doesn't mean necessarily sexually involved with. It just means intimately involved with. I mean, these things happen and they matter. I was 9 years. So Steve puts up, I was 9 years old, who just lost my father when my mother remarried. It was fine at the first year, and then the abuse started. And when I was told my mom, he always told her I was a chronic liar. Physical, emotional, mental abuse. But I turned 18 and caught him with another woman when I finally got. You know, Steve, that's tough, brother. That's tough. But you know what? Ultimately, you made it through, and that's and your mom did too, right? So, man,
Yeah, that's rough.
That's rough. I
That
don't.
kind of ties into like the sexual abuse side of things, right? That's why
Yeah,
women don't report sexual abuse, because no one's going to believe them, right? So that's kind of similar with Steve's story. Not that it was sexual abuse, but you go and you tell somebody and they don't believe you. You're a liar. You're a horrible, terrible, awful person. And that ties into this whole mess.
it really does. It really does. And we haven't. You know,
And I feel like the not being believed is actually worse than the actual abuse. You finally get the courage to say something, to tell someone, because you're embarrassed because it happened. You're embarrassed because you allowed him to treat you that way. And you finally go and tell somebody, oh no, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He would never do that. Right? I mean, how many times have I heard that? My father was a deputy sheriff. We had senators, we had congressmen at his funeral. I mean, he was an upstanding member of the community. That man would give you the shirt off his back. So that's what everyone outside the house thinks, right? So if you do get the courage to tell somebody and they don't believe you, then I think that's almost as damaging as the actual abuse you suffered through or watched.
I have a. I have someone that's very close to me that went through a lot of really difficult things as a child, as far as sexual abuse goes,
Mm-hmm.
um, and found the courage to speak out about it and to go to the people closest to her for it, and was never believed, and it all just got pushed away. And that person's grown adult these days. 30 plus 40. I don't know how old she is. Still haunted by it to this day. Struggles with it all the time. And you're 100% right when you say that. Like, and I have literally watched this person cry about why didn't they believe me. Like, and you're absolutely right. Like, being believed or not being believed, um, can
That
have is an equal effect, equally as damaging, if not worse.
right.
Especially when you find the courage, because so many victims don't find the courage to speak out against it, right? And those that do don't have the, those that do that, aren't believed is, you know, um, that's got to be just and here's the sad thing: it ends up being a life sentence, something you
It
carry
does.
for the rest of your life,
Yep, and I'm
and that
sorry that Steve's mom didn't believe him. And I'm sure after she realized, sounds like 9 years later, I'm sure she beats herself up for that to this day, right? You know,
yeah, it's man, this subject, I knew it was going to be tough. I knew it was going to be tough.
there's so
This is
many
one of those.
legs to it, right? So many legs, it goes in so many different directions.
And you brought up the sexual abuse, which we haven't really got into, and you know that's another subject that I know we're going to be getting into more and more here in the future. But there is a show that I'm working on now that'll be like dedicated to that topic. But we're going to talk about, like, child sex trafficking. We're going to talk about all these other things that tie into these things that literally are life sentences for the victims of. And I think that's the part when we talk about these kind of things and we have these kind of discussions, that I really want people to hear, is that it doesn't have to be. The life sentence part of it comes by believing that you deserved it, or it was your fault, or still hanging on to some of those things that were said to you. And I want to challenge everybody that's been in that situation, that has gone through these things, to challenge those words. Challenge that idea. This is not your fault. you are not responsible for the actions of other people. And ultimately, you can move past it. You can grow. And Billy, that's why I was so glad that you wanted to do this show and share your story, because the woman I met doesn't live with the ramifications of being abused or seeing domestic violence as a child or having experienced it. I would have never guessed in a million years when I met you.
It took a while to get here. I mean, it truly did.
Sure, of
And,
course.
with me, the hard part was my son, right? I mean, that was his biological father. And, what do you do with that whole situation? So that was where I struggled more, I think.
So Rhonda puts up that she thinks that some of the state and local laws are antiquated as well. She was in a 4-year relationship that was verbally abusive. He threatened to kill her family. I tried to get a restraining order. No one could. So I could go to my own town, get things. This was in South Carolina. The local police said that they would make 3 different responses to the home before restraining order would be issued. My church, family, friends rallied around me to provide protection. Rhonda, that is a very, very good point. And I agree that I look, I'm a pretty well informed guy, but I am not aware of all the laws in every county, every state and across this country, but I do know that there are some states where the laws are not catching up in time. And this is where, a march, a rally, a protest, things like that, a peaceful protest, things like that would be the time and the place for that. Because to get a law like that changed to where women or victims of domestic violence could get the support, get the restraining order, and get, if you call the police and say, I want to get away from this person, they need to leave me alone, they should be there to help you with that, regardless of what the situation is. At least that's
So
my opinion.
when it was going on with me, I lived in Iowa, and they had just passed the law, changed the laws. And if the police are called to a home for domestic violence, somebody is going to jail. They come to your house for that. Somebody is going to jail that night. So where I was, it worked. I didn't have to go through what she had to.
Chris put up, I know there are some cases that don't involve addiction, but you have touched on. Have you touched on that part of it yet? A little bit in the early part. Billy had brought up the fact that it's often connected to drug and alcohol abuse and things like that, and we talked about the differences with with the increased numbers that we're seeing right now because coronavirus and things like that, and a lot of that is due to the added stress and all those kind of things that are going on. So addiction does play a role in it, and it does absolutely mean, look, we don't do enough for addicts anyways. Right? And they need help. Like, addicts need help. And I'm going to go out here on a limb real quick, and I'm going to share something that I haven't ever shared. I went through 2 back-to-back reconstructive surgeries on my feet, 3 months apart. I took all the amounts of Oxycontin that a person could take. I had the fast-acting Oxy, the slow-acting Oxy. I ended up with an infection right after the second surgery. Almost had my left leg amputated. I've ended up in the hospital. Now I'm taking all the Oxy. I'm taking Dilaudid through an IV right on top of it for weeks and weeks. And one day I decided, after all of this was done and I was on the mend and I was getting better, I decided I was done taking pain meds. I didn't want to feel that way anymore. And I was just barely stubborn enough to never take another one. That was the worst case of withdrawals I have ever gone through in my life. It was horrific. To anybody that doesn't understand that sometimes a lot of these people, like we think of a drug addict and we think, yeah, they did it to themselves. What about me? Because I would have been that guy. I literally would have been that guy. But I was just stubborn enough, just barely. And I thank God every day for that. So much so, like this scares me so much now that when I broke my back or when I had my last surgery, I don't take narcotics at all, ever, because it scares me that much. Because whether you intend to, I was taking them as prescribed, and I still ended up in that position. So we don't do nearly enough for addicts. We need to do more for them, and it is not our place to judge how they got there. But if we can help, we should. That's my thought on that. You ever experienced anything like that, Billy?
No, not to that degree. I've had a number of surgeries on my knee, and that it's been replaced 4 times, and it's kind of a mess. But I think it's fine tying it back to the domestic violence thing. In my dad's situation and in my ex-husband's situation, it was definitely drug and alcohol related. My ex-husband did both. My dad drank. But definitely, I mean, every single time I can think of, they were impaired.
Billy, there's a comment for you to read on the screen.
Thank you, honey. I love you too. I don't even know where he is.
Wherever he's at, he's watching.
He must be on the deck because I can see the living room, the dining room, and I can hear out in the kitchen, and I don't hear him.
But look, we're coming right up on that hour mark, and yes, addiction does play into it. There's a lot of reasons people end up addicted to things, and you know what? That's probably a whole nother show in and of itself. But having had to go through those things, having the experience that I've had, like I got to tell you, he's on the back porch, Billy.
Thanks, Patrick.
Welcome. Whether we're talking about domestic violence, whether we're talking about addiction, whether we're talking about, trafficking or sexual abuse or any of these subjects, you guys, there is a way out, and it's never the fault of the victim, right? And there's a way to do this and a way to go about this. And I want anybody who's dealt with those things or dealing with those things, whether it's the consequences of it or you're still living it, to know that, oh, Claudia.
Right?
I'm glad. You're welcome. But whatever it is, I want you guys to know it's not your fault. The number one tool used by abusers is to keep you feeling like it's your fault. It's the go-to thing. They blame you for everything, whatever it is, whether it's dinner, whether it's laundry, whether it's what, it doesn't matter, right? The number one tool they use is to blame you. Now, I'm here to tell you it's not your fault. And there is a way out. Please. We're going to do a post here in a minute. We're going to put these hotline numbers up on a post in both our page. And we're going to pin it to the top of the group for anybody. If you need those numbers, please reach out and call. Obviously, Billy already said if you need anything, you need to talk, reach out to her. You guys all know that I will respond. You can reach out to me as well. And I know just about everybody on my team would agree with that as well. So, Billy, we are over an hour. You did your first show. What do you think?
I knew you were going to nail show. You were going to get me at some point. You got Carrie a couple of weeks ago. I knew my turn was going to roll around, but it had to be something I felt passionate about. So you got me.
Gotcha. Winning.
Dang it. Well, I just might go vacuum.
Oh, that's scary. This woman and her vacuum have some sort of like telekinetic ability to figure things out. I don't know. I don't get it. No, Billy, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, you know what, someone's going to hear this. Maybe somebody already has, and it's going to help them. And you know what, today you made a difference, and I want to thank you for that. And it's amazing.
Well, thank you for allowing to share my story and hopefully helping somebody get out of it.
Absolutely. Everybody else, as always, you guys know that I love you guys, and I would do anything that I can to continue to help all of us move forward and get better and do better. And if this is something that you're struggling with and you need help, either reach out to Billy, reach out to myself, reach out to anybody in my team, reach out to the hotline numbers that are on the screen now, that'll be in that post. But no matter what, do not believe that this is your fault, that you deserve this. This is not your fault, right? That being said, we're going to sign off. But I can't do that without saying my producer's getting really mad at me. Okay, so if you haven't followed the page, please go like and follow the page. That would be a great help for us. And there's something else. What else is I'm supposed to say?
Please share this video.
Share the video. That's it. That's it. Thank you very much. Please share the videos, share the comment, or share the post on the page. Like, have at it, you guys. I'm supposed to say those things. So I appreciate you guys all being here. Have an amazing night. And as always, be a little bit better tomorrow than you were today, you guys. And thank you for everything. You got to wave, Billy. Say bye.
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 You froze again. Bye.
Bye. Producer's leaving us hanging. What a guy. Well, I just leave us hanging. He's supposed to be hitting the inch. Like, bye. Oh, wait, do the princess wave. Hey, John, we said goodbye. What are you waiting for? You're killing me, man. You're killing me. Don't we have an exit thing?
So John's sleeping. So I have a little leave studio button. Guess what I'm gonna do?